we are turning to last night's incredible scenes at Anfield as Liverpool smashed Manchester City 3-0. Gary Breen, a very good morning to you. How are things?
Very well. Good morning.
Well, where do we even start with that? It was absolutely mind-boggling. There was always the potential, though, wasn't there, that Liverpool could do something like this to Manchester City, but actually seeing it happen, I think we were all just rubbing our eyes a little bit, weren't we?
It was fantastic. I mean, so often these big games have built to be something and invariably they disappoint. You just felt this never was going to, because as in boxing, great styles make great fights, and the styles of both teams just suited one another. We talked about the amount of goals we'd seen in the two previous games. I think it was 12 goals. Now suddenly it's 15 goals in 3 games. But Liverpool's first half performance, those first 30 minutes where they blew Manchester City out of the water, were just incredible to watch.
What was so impressive about the way they performed, other than the fact that they were so clinical?
A belief, a desire. I think that ultimately comes from the fact that they're the only team who have beaten Manchester City already. I think there's also the belief that Manchester City, as good as they are probably tailor-made for the way that Klopp sets his Liverpool team up. But nevertheless, you're talking about quality players, Manchester City, who have just brushed aside every challenge throughout this season. And for Liverpool to have such belief, obviously that comes from the manager, that comes from the atmosphere that's built in the stadium. We know about iconic European nights at Anfield, but it was just everything you wanted this game to be and more. And it is an amazing result, but you still don't think this tie is over because of the quality of Manchester City. But nevertheless, Liverpool must be thinking they've got almost a foot in the semi-finals of the Champions League.
So when Jurgen Klopp sets up his side yesterday, you mentioned there that City are tailor-made for this Liverpool performance sometimes. What is Jurgen Klopp looking at? What exactly is it about Manchester City that makes them so exactly suited to this Jurgen Klopp style of play?
I think ultimately it's Jurgen Klopp probably looks at Pep Guardiola's style of play and the fact that he's been the most successful manager against him, taking on his iconic teams at Barcelona, the giants of Bayern Munich, and he's been able to get results. That's carried on into the Premier League. That's carried on now into the Champions League. But I think he looks at it in terms of the way that they want control possession. He doesn't get embarrassed by the fact that they don't have a lot of the ball, Liverpool as such. Even if they're at home, they don't feel they have to make the run. And he suggested that it's not about having a perfect performance, it's about having a perfect result. And even Guardiola in the build-up to the game had suggested that this is his most difficult opponent because he knows his team are set up for Liverpool's counter-attacking pace, the quality they have. And it's all well and good saying about a template to beat Guardiola. And we've seen it with Barcelona teams. You would have identified how weak they were central defence in terms of could you get at Mascherano, but you couldn't because you just didn't get the ball. So it would be likewise last night. If they don't have the ball, they can't really hurt them. If they don't, more importantly, have the players that take advantage of those very few chinks in the armour. But Liverpool certainly had that last night with that front three and even the midfield three. In terms of the energy, I think a lot of question marks were raised about Milner playing, Henderson, maybe lacking a little bit of guile in there as such. But the three of them, alongside Oxlade-Chamberlain, dominated that midfield and just didn't give Manchester City an opportunity to breathe.
Obviously, the Liverpool pace is something we've seen all season. It's very, very hard to stop, no matter how quality a side you are. But it seemed that Manchester City yesterday took an element of pace out of their own game in a bid to stop Liverpool's pace.
Absolutely. I mean, that really surprised me, those team sheets, when they initially came in. Bearing in mind Sterling, and we're not talking about a young player, we're talking a player who's evolved this season. He's been amongst the goals. I think he's got 21 goals already this season. And if you look at any vulnerability about Liverpool in terms of countering their pace that they have, it's probably playing behind their fullbacks who like to get in advanced areas. We'd identified that Alexander-Arnold would be exposed by Sane on that left wing. And Manchester City obviously looked to go for him, but he played exceptionally well, the young man. But to play Gundogan instead of Sterling on that right wing just allowed Robertson an opportunity to attack at will without having to stay honest, knowing that Sterling's pace would hurt him in behind. And when that team sheet come in, it surprised me, but I still looked at him for, well, Guardiola is not selecting the team to protect his team against Liverpool. He's identified that that is a way of beating this Liverpool team, comfortably dominating that midfield area. But it was a very, very surprise selection, and I don't think it paid out for him.
Was there an element at all about protecting Raheem Sterling going back to the cauldron that is Anfield on a Champions League night?
No, I don't think so. I think a lot's been made of the fact that as soon as Sterling plays in a game at Anfield, it just raises the crowd. But I don't think they needed that. The Liverpool crowd were going to be there for their team no matter what. And I was surprised because for a young player, Sterling has got a lot of mental strength. He's got a thick skin. He always wants the ball, even when he's not playing particularly well. And that was what really surprised me, that the decision was made not to play him, because I thought he was tailor-made. He would have been dying to come back to show the reason why Liverpool, and I know the cries are of that he's agreed It was money based, but he can look around and say, no, listen, I'm going to win the Premier League title here. I'm on the cusp of a magnificent team that's gone on to do something special. But Liverpool literally blew all that out of the water.
Yeah, we might come back to that in a moment. There is a few comments coming in about Manchester City and I guess the supposed greatness of this team. And I guess there's a lot of people getting ahead of themselves this morning. But, but before we do all that, I just want to kind of chat about Liverpool's defence for a moment. You mentioned Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was absolutely sensational last night.
He was.
And it just makes it so much more highlighted this morning, isn't it? Because they clearly took Leroy Sané and they were like, you're going to target this kid and you're going to kill him. And the opposite happened.
Exactly, and I think the worry going into the game was that Gomez had got injured on international duty for Liverpool. Nathaniel Clyne, although he's back amongst the squad, obviously he's not ready to start a game of this magnitude. And you're quite right. I think Liverpool fans, as much as they like him going forward, Alexander-Arnold would have identified there is a weakness. We've seen it on Saturday. Zaha continually runs inside him. And he gets too square of his winger. He doesn't sense danger quick enough. We've seen Rashford kill him at Old Trafford, similar. And then when you think of how good Sané has been and how direct and how incisive he is in making those runs from outside inside, you feared for him. But he rose to the challenge, and it suggests that he's got an ability to make a big career for himself, that he knows he's under the spotlight and he could still make and produce a performance the way he did. Listen, there are still deficiencies in his game, but there are with all young fullbacks as such, but certainly he can take a lot of pride in his performance last night.
As a unit as well, I guess there is something impressive about Liverpool, because when you've got a player that young playing at right back, you've got to have some sort of direction, I'm sure, coming from the middle. And does credit have to go to Lovren and Virgil van Dijk as well for his performance?
Well, yes, I think that's par for the course. So any young fullback needs his support, needs advice, needs a bit of cajoling, information from his centre-halves in terms of getting into good early positions. Certainly for Alexander-Arnold, whose career as a young player is more of a midfielder than a fullback. So certainly they will take credit for it. I think Van Dijk has added presence back there. Of course he has. And the very fact that Sterling wasn't picked there, if Van Dijk weren't there, I have no doubt Sterling would have been picked there to try and expose Liverpool at centre-half, but they probably felt that he had the pace to cope with Sterling if he got in behind Robertson. But Lovren, who's taken an awful lot of stick, and I'm not surprised that he's performed well on the night. The problem with Lovren is that he lacks the consistency required to play for a club like Liverpool. I've no doubt on one-off performances, as he proved last night, he can be dominant, but they're just few and far between at a club like Liverpool.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned consistency there, and that was certainly one of my thoughts last night watching them, that here's a group of players that are overperforming, and if they manage to do this on a consistent level, then they're away in a hat. They could challenge for the Premier League title, no question. And then you think about the atmosphere that was there at Anfield last night, that potentially these guys are the opposite of players that crack under pressure. In fact, they need this huge atmosphere for them to be focused in and I guess find that consistency within a 90-minute performance.
Yeah, listen, you talk about atmospheres and how it elevates you as a player. Of course it does. And it's an iconic stadium, Anfield. Of course it is. There's a lot of pressure attached to playing with it. And I think that pressure maybe comes from that you have to perform, as we just said, week in, week out. But on those one-off occasions, European nights, similar to playing for Ireland at Lansdowne Road, the crowd elevates you to another level. And they certainly produced it there. And there was no surprise. I mean, a lot's been said about the atmosphere prior to the game. We don't want to see bottles thrown, but certainly that intensity is what you want to associate with big European nights. Listen, there's a fine line, and Liverpool supporters, some of them, not all of them, have crossed it last night in terms of battering the bus with bottles and what have you. But I still want to see that intensity. I still want to see the drama leading into the game, because it heightens everything. And I mean, it was incredible. Those Liverpool supporters were fantastic inside the stadium in terms of the atmosphere they created. And people may think that Manchester City wilted under it. They didn't. They started the game particularly well. They had the ability to control games and negate the supporters, but the supporters were having none of it. They knew that their team would see little of the ball early on, but that didn't stop them. That didn't make them quiet. They drove that team on. Yeah,
there's two things there I want to pick you up on, and the bus is one thing. We'll come back to that in just a moment. But just in terms of City's start to the game, like, explain to us what City were doing at the start of the game, because they were clearly the more impressive side in the opening 10 minutes, and how Liverpool managed to kind of turn that tide to a certain extent.
Well, the goal more than anything turned everything, because Manchester City would have felt comfortable about themselves, dictating play as we've seen so often. I think Liverpool were comfortable as a team in terms of the tactics that their manager gave them, not to panic. Listen, don't let pride get in the way. Don't let the atmosphere affect you so much that you go tearing out after Manchester City. and leave little gaps behind them. Liverpool were disciplined. The back four was sitting in there. The midfield three were protecting them very well. And I think you've got to give a special mention to Firmino as well. We know about his attributes as a centre forward, but he kept dropping into midfield and making an extra man, and they're rushing Manchester City, not giving them time on the ball. And that's the problem, that Manchester City felt that as good a players as they are, they weren't allowed to develop that momentum, that rhythm that we've seen so often punish teams this season. And I just thought it was fantastic. I think it was such a mature, disciplined performance. It was the heavy metal football we associate with Klopp, but there was a lot of control within that. And sometimes as a player, that's difficult because you can get carried away with the emotion of the crowd. You just have to have that little bit of a calming influence around him. And I think they executed the plan brilliantly.
Yeah. How important is it to have somebody like Roberto Firmino in front of you as a midfielder when you're someone like Jordan Henderson or like James Milner? Because I guess they can drop deeper again, knowing that there's kind of more of a press going on at the front half of their own half. And you could see it in the goal, in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's goal, the fact that James Milner is the man who makes that interception.
Oh, listen, Firmino does a magnificent role, and he's an unorthodox centre forward in terms of what he does for Liverpool, but he's the perfect one for Jurgen Klopp in terms of his system. And you're right, I think centre forwards, if he does that role in terms of dropping into midfield, just to put a little bit of pressure on the deep line Manchester City midfielder, it just allows you as a midfield three then to sit in. Because if he doesn't do that, it just sees that Silva will get his head up, Fernandinho will get his head up, and then they'll start seeing pictures, and they'll have 2 or 3 seconds longer than you would normally want them to have. And if they have that time, they're going to punish you. I think if he doesn't do that, I think the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain, certainly Henderson, would feel that they have to go out of midfield and press the ball. And in doing so, there's space created in that 10 area that Manchester City exposed so well. So he played a massive role. And
Oxlade-Chamberlain, as I mentioned as well, with that goal. But interestingly, I guess the thing we can take ahead to the second leg is his role in the second half when Mo Salah goes off. They obviously lose something when Mo Salah goes off. There's no question about that. But Oxlade-Chamberlain in that right-hand role, are they then losing something in midfield with the bursting runs of the Ox through the middle?
Well, I think they'll probably make a decision. It'd be fascinating or so intriguing now to see just how bad this injury is, because even when he went off at 3-0, you just felt the whole tie could change here. If it's a groin injury that leads him to miss the second leg or the back end of Liverpool season, everything changes for Liverpool. And that's not to suggest that they're a one-man team. They're not. Of course they're not. But he's been sensational, and he's part of a functioning unit. He's the man who gets the goals, and he'll be a massive loss. You're right. I think Oxlade-Chamberlain is, at the moment, proving what Jurgen Klopp said initially when he signed Oxlade-Chamberlain. And at the time, Liverpool fans were saying, well, why are we paying £30 million for a player who's going to be on a free in the summer? He's identified that this was a player we needed right now. And I think he's made Arsene Wenger's role there look a bit redundant in terms of not producing and making his player go to the level that we're now seeing he's capable at Liverpool. Because Jurgen Klopp, as soon as he signed him, said he needs to add goals to his game. And he's done that at Liverpool, and he's going to continue to do that. But nevertheless, that was a sensational strike.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. As I say, we'll talk about the bus. Like, is it something that rattles a team like that? I mean, Ilkay Gundogan came out after the game and said it motivated us more for the match. Like, does it have a material effect on a team, especially a team like Manchester City, who wouldn't really be used to this sort of thing?
No, I don't. I genuinely don't think it does have a massive impact. I think De Bruyne said it after the game. Company was very vocal after the game, saying, "No, listen, this doesn't impact us. In fact, we love the atmosphere." We talked about bottles being thrown and glass on the bus being smashed. You don't want to see that. But certainly you want to see the smoke. You want to see the flares as such. As long as no one's getting hurt, there's no potential for anyone to get hurt. But they're the intense atmospheres you want to experience. You know, something that as a top player you normally associate with European nights. You don't see it domestically. You probably see it with big international games. We certainly saw it when we went to Turkey all those years ago in playoff games, Iran, those type of atmosphere. And as a player, you're thinking, you're looking around thinking, yeah, this is what I've dreamt about. This is what I want to see. And it doesn't affect them. Listen, we've seen top players. They can cope with this type of situation. I think they're used to it as such. But as a spectacle, watching the bus coming through, before the bottles were thrown, it just added to the excitement for me as a viewer watching it. And I just hope that it's something we don't see in terms of the danger potentially with bottles being thrown, and that's just the mindless idiots. But certainly the atmosphere going into the game was everything you associate with a big European nights with Liverpool in past against, you know, those big games against Chelsea.
So you were saying that basically if you're a player of that ilk, you're looking around, you're thinking, this is amazing, this is going to be, despite the fact that, you know, the bus could get damaged by the bottles, this is still an amazing atmosphere and the players should be thriving under this sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I think they would have been. I think, listen, I would have loved the opportunity of playing such a high-profile Champions League game like that, and I can only associate it with big international games for Ireland. But when you're sitting on the bus, you're looking around and you're thinking, yeah, this is what we dreamed about. We know we're getting the stadium, the atmosphere is going to be, but this is part of it. This adds to the whole special thing. And I think also as a player, you probably look around at your teammates as you're going there thinking, come on lads, let's have some of this. This is going to be quality.
Just one comment before we wrap up on one question about Conor Masterson. Just one last comment on Manchester City. Omar Al-Nourzi has asked, was the talk of Manchester City being the best ever Premier League team premature? I think he's getting a bit ahead of himself there himself, no?
No, I don't think it is. I think in isolation, if you're talking about Premier League, we're obviously judging them as a Premier League team now in terms of being mauled literally by Liverpool in the Champions League. No, there's no doubt in that. If you're talking about a legacy as such and the great United team, the treble-winning team of '99, who go on and win the European Cup, then yes, it's a difficult comparison. But the Invincibles of Arsenal didn't do anything in Europe that season. We've seen top teams for Chelsea, Mourinho's teams, not do anything in Europe. So don't judge them on that as such. If you're judging them in terms of isolation as a great Premier League team, without a shadow of a doubt, they're going to be considered one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, and then one last comment. Maria Keena has said, looking forward to seeing Conor Masterson in the future for the Reds, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to seeing him in the future in the green jersey of Ireland as well. Like, how much would that have done for him last night, being on the bench in this cauldron that was Anfield?
Well, listen, in terms of your development as a young player, you want to expose kids to as much as possible for their learning curve. And to be part of that, we talked about the Manchester City bus, but imagine the Liverpool bus and he's sat there knowing that he's going to be part of the squad, travelling to this game. If I was a young player, and I would have had something similar travelling with Jack Charlton's team as a young Ireland player, under-21 player, then going with the seniors, didn't get an opportunity to be on the bench, but it was on the thing. It made me want it even more. And you'd hope that that young man is of the same mindset, that this is exactly what he wants. But take nothing away from him. For me, even to get in the squad for a game of this magnitude suggests that he's hardly thought of. And I can't wait to see him, as you quite rightly said, playing more games for Liverpool, but more notably playing some games for Ireland. Yeah,
absolutely. Will Manchester City be able to bring this one back next week, Gary?
If anyone can, they can. The only thing is that Liverpool have that counter-attacking threat, that if they get that away goal, it means that Manchester City have to get 4. I look at Liverpool's defence. I think that they're not the type of team, I think, who can sit back and soak up pressure. I think they'll have to go after them to a certain extent. I don't think they'll be kamikaze as such in terms of leaving themselves completely wide open. But I certainly don't think this game is over.
Yeah, certainly not. It's a tantalising prospect once again next week. Gary Breen, thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.